Computer. Okay, so we are recording. Get my notes out. All right, so I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, but if you guys have questions as we go along, I will pause here and there and I can address them. Otherwise, I think the Facebook group is going to be a really fantastic place for us to expand on some of the stuff we talk about today. So this workshop is really all about having a vision for a better life for yourself and the steps to achieve it, and how that all really begins with loving yourself. So this is going to be about over an hour roughly, so watch as you can. It's recorded. I will send you the link for the recording, so if you can find you can only watch it in 15-minute increments, 5-minute increments, whatever that means as a parent, you will have access to that link indefinitely to watch it. So what we're going to talk about first is kind of this spiritual ability of the mind to create what we desire, and then in the conversation we'll move from that kind of that dreaming and thinking of making it happen to actual very real steps to make it happen. So bear with me if you're not on board with the mind-body connection piece, because we will soon start to talk about the really concrete steps you can take to achieve better self-care. So my journey has been a lifelong journey to get to where I am today. My mom was a single mom, and she did a really fantastic job of modeling self-care by working out and getting out socially. But when she got really late-term breast cancer when I was 7 years old, there was this unspoken understanding on my part that my own self-care would take a backseat to her needs of going through this really massive healthcare struggle. So this idea of putting my own needs kind of second to the needs of her really carried through until I was an adult, when she passed away when I was 21. As much as I was devastated by her loss, it was also very liberating, and I was, for the first time in my life, really able to do a lot of things just for myself, and not really taking into account how that was going to affect her, or with not having any other close family, didn't really have to consider how that was affecting the other people in my circle. But what ended up happening was that liberation wasn't really healing this inner dialogue that I had of putting myself second and putting my self-care second to other people's needs. So when I met a man and married him 4 years after my mom passed away, I was in a perfect place to become this wife and later this mother who continued to put myself last. I went through several years of fertility treatments, and after having my first daughter, I had numerous miscarriages, and I found that I was completely blissfully giving of myself to my children, and I loved them so much, but I wasn't modeling for them my own self-respect, and I wasn't having that modeled by any other adults in our lives, that I deserved self-respect. So it wasn't really until after going through a really humiliating and devastating divorce that I finally awakened to this truth that if I didn't care for myself and I didn't put myself first, then I, being the most healthiest foundation in my children's lives, could never really properly take care of them. And it took going through some massive challenges to finally get to that point. So not only that, but I have to do for myself what I hope my children will do as adults. So what I'm modeling right now, and maybe this is my main motivating factor, but it's working. So what I'm modeling right now is the type of relationships I want my children to have with themselves as adults. All that to say, the first biggest step for me came through envisioning a better life for myself and believing that I can manifest that through my thoughts. So here's that spiritual piece. So if you don't subscribe to it, please just bear with me, because it's just one piece of the greater workshop. So something that's really popular right now is vision boards. And the reason that vision boards work is because of this thing called manifestation. So it's this idea of seeing what you want in your life and attracting like energy in your life to make it happen. This is actually exactly, with the Olympics just happening, exactly what Olympic athletes do when they are closing their eyes and they're envisioning how they're going to complete their race, and they're going to complete it successfully, and they're going to complete their race in perfect form, highest speed. So this is something that works. The other part of manifestation is that not only do you have to have the vision and you have to know what you want to achieve, but you also have to take the steps to make it happen, because the universe isn't going to meet you sitting on the sofa just wishing that something would happen. It is going to meet you if you're out in the world taking steps to improve your life or to reach your goals. If you don't believe in manifestation, that's totally okay, because if you follow the steps, it will still work. It's this idea of what is the worst case scenario of practicing manifestation and meditations. The worst case scenario is that it doesn't work, which really isn't a horrible worst case scenario. Let's see. So before we start, I thought we could do a sample meditation for manifestation that you can then kind of cater on your own later and make it fit really what you're feeling and what you want. But I want you to remember that as we go through this meditation, everything that you're imagining, you have to try to feel the positive emotions you will have when you have already achieved these things. So finding that tickle in your heart center, that lightness, that happiness that bubbles up when you're feeling really content and really happy. So this meditation is all about visualizing your life once all that you want has already been achieved. Now, of course, the idea that life is a path and there will always be new goals. But in this moment today, and what you want to achieve for your self-love, visualize your life once those goals are reached and you're taking much better care of yourself. It's important that you use all of your senses to imagine this. So imagining sounds, sights, smells, tastes, feelings, all of these things really help you vibrate in that positive place of feeling like it's happened. So I want you to take a deep breath. And I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to imagine, based off lots of the things that we discussed in the Facebook group, I want you to imagine all of these goals that you have for yourself for self-care. I want you to imagine that you feel good, that your clothes are fitting, that you have very low pain and high energy. As part of this, imagine what touching the clothes on your body would feel if everything just fit well and you didn't feel too snug in your clothes. Imagine being in well-fitting clothes that you feel comfortable and it makes you feel good to wear them. I want you to feel how light your heart feels when you are rested and when you've gotten a lot of sleep and you're feeling healthy. I want you to imagine how your laughter sounds when you're laughing with your friends and family, and how your children's laughter sounds, how your partner's laughter sounds when you are in a happy place and they are feeling grounded and happy. I want you to imagine the smell of healthy foods in your kitchen and on your plate. I want you to imagine how they taste and how they awaken all of the taste buds in your palate. You have energy and you are loving and playful when you put your kids to sleep. You are so content with your life and your relationship with your family that you are always on the verge of a smile and you're always in love with life, and contentment just bubbles up from your heart. Now I want you to say, I allow this or something better into my life. You're allowing the universe to deliver exactly what you want or something better into your life. Take another deep breath. Okay, and open your eyes. Now, that is just a little sample of what manifestation exercises and meditations are like. So not too crazy, I don't think. Just really visualizing really deeply, so much beyond giving it a quick thought. Manifestation is about pure intentions of doing the exercises, connecting your emotions with what you desire, and then releasing your attachment to the outcome. So that's the really important part, and it might seem a little bit backwards, but it's this releasing your attachment to the outcome that also releases any type of force or pressure that you might be applying to the outcome, that actually this force and this pressure actually counteracts all of the energetic work that you've done. So be open to how your vision of your better self-care manifests. This might be as obvious as a personal trainer appearing in your life and asking if they can train you to build their portfolio. This may be a relative that ends up moving closer to you and offering to help you with your kids. This is all about knowing what you want to attract into your life and what you want the outcome to be, and then allowing the universe or God to make it happen. Again, I talked about the other important piece, which is showing up. So the universe won't meet you on the sofa. It won't meet you running in circles around your kids and feeling overwhelmed. You have to continue to vibrate from that place of ease and contentment, and then you have to take the steps forward towards your goal to make it happen. The universe is not going to vibrate and help you vibrate from a place of happiness if you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed out. So releasing of that control is a really big piece. In fact, for me, that changed the entire dynamic for myself. It could be maybe taking the steps on your path towards your goal, could be finding yoga that you really enjoy on YouTube. And then through signing up for the YouTube channel and maybe their email list, that you find this whole community to connect with that holds you accountable to your practice. Maybe through this kind of yoga and through the community, you actually find a yoga that resonates with you much more, and it makes you become much more passionate about yoga and much more inclined to do it. So all of these little doors that you walk through on your path will lead you to your end result, and just being really open to that. Again, a theme that's going to come up over and over again is worst case scenario. So always ask, what is the worst case scenario if I don't jump into this? If I don't overplan, if I don't overthink. Example would be, worst case scenario if you show up to a yoga class for the first time that you've randomly found and you just go. You don't read the reviews. You don't ask 30 of your closest friends where they like to go to yoga. Worst case scenario is that it just doesn't resonate with you and you don't go back to that one. It's not really so bad. So the benefits is that, number one, you got to yoga. You went to the yoga class. And then number two, you eliminated one place that you won't go back so you can find a better choice for yourself. If you ask yourself when you're making any decision, if you are going to find more often than not that your worst case scenario isn't really that bad. It helps you evaluate the pressures of the choices and steps that you're making. And these pressures are self-imposed. You're eliminating the judgments, your judgments that you're placing on these things and the experiences and the outcomes of them. I am also a really big proponent of fake it till you make it, which goes really well with worst case scenario thought. So this is a technique that I use a lot in creating my own successful life. If you're feeling insecure, pretend you're the most insecure person in the room. If you don't know a lick about yoga, you go to that yoga class and you do all of the moves is 100% to your ability, and you do it as if you belong to be there. If you don't like anything about eating healthy and you're pretty sure you've hated every single salad you've ever tasted, you keep trying new recipes, you expand your palate, and soon you will find a salad that you like. It's really a lot of mind over matter. Ultimately, the cost for having everything that you want is your own vulnerability. If you are willing to be vulnerable and really sit with all of the ugliness that is in your life, the universe is going to provide opportunities along your path to lessen that suffering. If you have to be vulnerable and open if you decide you are too busy to make these changes, you need to be vulnerable about making those changes and then using it as a means to escape what you need to face. So basically, by being vulnerable, by facing your insecurities, by facing your weaknesses, and just saying, here I am, I'm going to try anyway. Not only are you going to grow immensely as a person, you're going to allow lessons to come to you and you're going to learn from them, and it's going to end up benefiting you in the long run. So how are we doing so far? Any questions? That was kind of the heavy part of the workshop. That was the heavy getting spiritual piece. All right, so now we are going to talk about vision boards, which is actually the really first piece of this workshop, is having the vision. We've talked about having the vision spiritually, psychologically. So now we're going to talk about vision boards physically and creating them. Vision boards are really popular right now. But I encourage you, instead of putting the big mansion on the vision board or the money or the cars, to really make your vision board a focus of self-love goals, because that's what this workshop's all about. And again, if it is something that, I'm backing up here a little bit. If it's something that you can envision, then you can make it happen. So to have a really healthy home dynamic and family dynamic, it all begins with your self-care. The energy that we bring into our home, it affects everyone else in the home. We are the cornerstone. We are the cornerstone. So I think you will find that if you're having a rough day and you're stressed out, pretty soon your kids start acting up more. And it's because they are vibrating off of your own feelings. So it's really important to stay grounded and healthy and content with yourself, because in the long run, it's going to benefit your entire family. So again, vision boards are very popular, but there's a second piece that I think a lot of people miss with the vision boards. They're really great for visualizing our goals and having really clear intentions of what our goals are. But the problem with vision boards is you can't just put images on the board and expect that if you look at them from time to time, that you're going to manifest what you desire. Vision boards are the very first step. So they are visual reminders of what you are aiming for. It's better than writing a bunch of words in a journal and then closing that journal and never looking at it again. The great thing about vision boards is you are putting it somewhere where you can see it regularly. And it's a reminder of a much bigger goal just by glancing at a single image. So not having to sit down and read something that you've written, but looking at a picture of someone who perhaps has the physique that you are wanting to achieve, and having that single image remind you of all the steps that you are taking to get there. Let's see, scrolling down. The important thing about the vision board and the images that you're selecting is that they are true to your goals that you have in mind, and that they really properly represent what you want to achieve. If you have an image that is intentionally correct, it is so much more important than having a really pretty vision board. I know I'm totally devastating the crafters in the group right now, but you can put all of the beautiful images you want on your vision board. But if they don't specifically represent what you want, then all they are is a pretty picture. Something I like to do if I'm really struggling with finding the right image that's resonating with my desire is I will go to the internet and I'll go to like Google or Google Images or Pinterest, and I will print out specific images for my goals. For example, a lot of us talked about goals of working out. So you want to be really specific, and you want to go onto Google, and if for working out for you that means running or lifting weights, then you want to specifically look up an image of someone running or lifting weights. It could also be as much as a physique that you really admire and want to achieve, and then using that. The physique image is telling the bigger story of the activities that you might do to achieve that. Something else that I do is I'm a very visual person. So if I've cut out a picture of a person working out or somebody who has a body that I would like to achieve, I'm still looking at that picture and looking at the other person's face and seeing that that's somebody else, that's not me. So I just kind of cut their head off and then find a picture of myself and glue my own head on. That's a little bit cheesy, cut and paste, but when I'm looking at that picture, I am definitely seeing my head on the image of the person doing the activities that I'm trying to manifest. So the images that you put on your board are very similar to manifestation images or visualizations. So we talked in the group a lot about working out, eating healthy, meal planning. So all of these are images that would be great on your self-care board. On Pinterest, there's a lot of pins when it comes to meal planning about actually even organized snacks or meals that are in jars or plastic containers. So maybe an image like that actually would really help you visualize what your goal is in regards to taking better care of yourself from a food standpoint. If your goal is having better energy, I know that can be a somewhat difficult image to convey. So maybe you find an image of an adult who's frolicking in the fields, and then you cut your head off and you put your head on it. And that represents better energy because you know what that image represents for your vision. When you are done with your vision board, you want to be sure and put it somewhere you can see it every single day. I'm one of those people who likes to put affirmations everywhere. In fact, one whole half of my bathroom mirror looks like a Pinterest quote board, but I read them every day as I'm getting ready in the morning, and it's really helpful for me. I also have little taped signs all over my house. That's usually places where my eyes kind of fall and rest on walls, maybe near light switches or the thermostat, and it just says breathe. So I have all of these little reminders, and it's amazing when I read the little sign that I stop and I take that moment and I just breathe and I just take it in. In fact, I think there's actually one right here also at my desk. So just like all of these little signs and affirmations are cueing my mind in to the mental places that I want my mind to resonate and to call home, your vision board is going to do that also. Since self-care isn't autopilot for me, it was really important for me to put my vision board where I would pass it regularly. So my vision board is right on top of my butcher block in my kitchen. It's the butcher block cutting board that I keep right on my counter. So it's propped up against the wall, and when I pass to the fridge, I see it. When I take things out of the fridge and pour them in glasses, the vision board's right there and I can see it. It's in front of me when I'm making my tea. It's readily visible when I'm washing my hands. My kitchen is really the center of my home. So by having my vision board there, I'm seeing it numerous times throughout the day, not just in the morning when I'm getting dressed or at night when I'm going to bed. And it's that repeated exposure to the images that remind you of what you want to achieve that ends up making it a lot more successful for you. We had a lot of really great goals that you guys listed on the Facebook group. I'm just going to check in here on comments. Everybody able to hear me okay? I think everybody is. You guys are commenting. Okay, so backing up to goals. Yep, everybody can hear okay. So we had one comment that they weren't able to hear. So hopefully you guys have been able to catch back in. So we had some really great conversations in the Facebook group. We were listing our goals that we want to achieve for our self-care and our self-love. So for some of you, a goal that came up for you was healthy eating and eating with regularity, which is such a common problem for parents, especially new parents with new babies. But I'd like to say that it gets substantially better, but it really doesn't unless you make an effort to make it better. So I have found that during really hectic times in my life, eating takes a backseat to the other things that are happening. On the same token, I do recognize that eating healthy and with regularity is a really important part of being a grounded, healthy parent. And just like kids, when we are hungry, our moods can shift dramatically. And when we are not eating well, it can really affect our hormones. And sugar is a huge culprit in balancing our hormones, in depleting our energy levels, and taxing our adrenals. And this healthy eating is something that we can definitely tackle more in the Facebook group and in the upcoming workshops that I'll be hosting. But it's really important that when you do eat, even if you're not sitting down and having full meals or you're just snacking throughout the day, it's important that when you do eat, that you're having foods that are really nourishing and sustaining you. If I'm not planning my snacks ahead, then the food choices I make are not fantastic. There's some cookie eating when I don't plan my meals well. And part of that problem is buying it. If you buy the garbage and you bring it home, you will definitely eat it. And I'm going to use the cookies as an example again, because I have been known to splurge at the grocery store, have the cookies at home, have not planned my snacks in my meals well, and then because the cookies are in a bag, they're very easy to grab and eat and go. I end up eating way too many of them, and I may have been known to eat a whole bag of cookies by myself in one sitting. Not that I would ever do that, but it may have happened. All right, so it doesn't mean that we don't have sweets in my house, but I have found really fantastic recipes that in many cases are gluten-free, because we try to do the nourishing tradition style of eating where if we're not having sprouted grains, we try to do gluten-free. And some of them even have veggies like sweet potatoes, avocados, spinach, beets, zucchini. So it really makes them a healthy grab and go sweet treat, not only for my kids, but then also for myself. Meal planning is so important when it comes to snacking and eating better. So I want you to really think beyond just meal planning for your 3 meals a day. It needs to go as far as your snacks and the things that you are consuming in between your meals. So if you have really healthy snacking choices, then you won't grab and go with bad food. So things that work really well for me and my kids are Lara bars and trail mix and apples and bananas and mandarins and all of those things that don't need to be cut. They don't need to be prepared. They're also really great for making sure that I've been eating in the morning. When, I'm really great about making sure that my kids get breakfast, but I become an afterthought. So if I take a grab and go snack, and I take it in the car and I'm driving my kids to school and I'm eating the snack, then by the time I've gotten them to school, I have actually already had a healthy, nutrient-dense snack to sustain me, at least until I'm able to snack again or have an actual real meal. Let's see here. I know one of us in the group is a new mom, and I'm not sure if you're a nursing mom or not, but it doesn't matter, because when you have a new baby in the house, it is extraordinarily difficult to get food in your mouth between making the bottles, feeding them, changing them. And even for moms and dads in this group who are introducing a second child, adjusting to that second child is a crazy train. And so not only are you dealing with the nutrient needs of a newborn, but then you also have this toddler who has a vigorous snacking schedule. So food becomes a very important piece of keeping everybody sane and happy. The challenges of feeding yourself while your body is recovering from childbirth and nursing are very real. It is really important at that time to eat really nutrient-dense foods. And just to remember that during pregnancy and while you're nursing, your baby will always get all of the nutrients that it needs from your body, whether you are eating well or not, which means if you're not eating well, you are, you're basically having those nutrients eliminated from your body and they're not being used by you. And it's not putting you in a place to be a really healthy parent as your child grows. I find trail mix is really great for this. If you're comfortable having food in your bedroom and you're up late at night with your child, trail mix is great. If you have dogs, make sure you're putting it in something like a hard-sided container or a mason jar so that they're not chewing through any kind of Ziploc baggies. But I'm a big proponent of having nuts that are soaked because of the phytic acid. And again, this is a conversation we can have in another workshop about food. But making sure that when you are getting your trail mix, don't just buy the trail mix that you can get at the store. Making sure that you are getting really good quality nuts, dried fruit that doesn't have the preservatives in it, so that everything that you're eating is as high and nutrient dense as possible. Let's see. We talked about Lara bars already, which are also a really great alternative to trail mix. They're prepackaged. You can throw them in diaper bags. You can throw them in your purse. Even now, when my kids are 5 and 8, the bottom of my purse is coated with little Lara bars that I eat for myself or give to my kids. They do have the kind that are only fruit and nuts, and I definitely recommend those before the brands that have like the chocolate and all the other sugar additives into them. Something else that I did a lot when I was struggling to get food into my system is I would buy the big jugs of the milk kefir. And it just kind of became my jug of milk kefir. And I would kind of saunter up to the fridge like a bachelor and just drink straight from my jug of milk kefir and put it back in the fridge. And again, it was a no prep way for me to get healthy, nutrient dense foods into my system. So not having to cut anything, cook anything, pour it in a glass. And it was just that food on the run kind of approach. I do believe Lifeway Organic has the big jugs, but I do believe now they're actually making small individual sized jugs if you do want to just drink one and then toss it. I know there's a lot of other drinkable yogurt too. So I highly recommend finding snacks that are no prep. You can just grab them and eat them and not worry about that prep. Let's see. I did create some Pinterest boards for meal planning. So there's a board that's for smoothies. There's a board for incorporating greens into your food. There's one that has baked goods with healthy ingredients. And Pinterest boards actually made a significant difference in how my family eats. So I will include all of these links for you in the Facebook group. But there's also additionally a Pinterest board that is just free downloadable forms that people on Pinterest have created for meal planning. I was never a meal planner. In fact, I was really a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. But I found once I had kids that figuring out what I was going to feed them 3 times a day with snacks in between was becoming a morning, noon, and night thought process. And it was kind of stressing me out. So by meal planning, it reduced my stress. It completely cut my grocery costs because I was no longer wasting food that wasn't getting eaten and getting lost in the back of the fridge. And during the time that I was nursing my kids, or even now while I'm putting them to bed, I can be on my Pinterest app looking for really simple recipes that can either be made in bulk and frozen, or that I can know that I can make in a like 15 to 20 minute increment. And then I pin those in various boards. And then when it comes to meal planning, it's really great because I can look through all of those meals that I pinned, and I can use my free printable with my meal planning, and I can pick out what I'm going to make for breakfast, lunch, and dinner each day of the week. And then I can go back through later when that's all done and create my shopping list based on all of those items. So for example, if I'm doing meal planning, I can say, okay, well, on Monday morning, I'm going to give my kids sprouted bagels with cultured cream cheese. And then maybe they're going to pack their lunches for school. And then maybe in the evening, we will have chicken tenders with roasted broccoli. And then maybe on Tuesday, my kids are going to have the oatmeal that I've been sprouting overnight, and I'll cook in the morning real quick for them. Cool thing about the oatmeal is it can be frozen in smaller servings for easy making on other days. And then maybe for their after school snack, we'll end up having some sliced apples with peanut butter. And then maybe that night for dinner, we'll have some homemade pizza dough that I put in the freezer that I made out of sprouted flour, and then a Caesar salad, which is just the bagged salad, making my life easy, not worrying about washing lettuce and chopping it up, and saving me that little bit of time. So again, once all of my meals were selected for the week, I would then make my grocery list. I would make sure that the meals I was making at the beginning of the week with the ingredients that I was buying were the ingredients that needed to be used first so they wouldn't go bad. And then things that could be frozen, like any meat products, anything that could be frozen would be put in the freezer and then thawed out again for the end of the week, so that I'm shopping one time a week. It's completely thawed out. It's It's all my meals are thought of. I'm not having to worry about running out of food in the middle of the week, and my stress level is significantly decreased. I know some of you too, there's a whole lot of these delivery options where you can have all the ingredients for your meals delivered and they give you the recipe. And that's also a really fantastic option if you're able to do that. I do make sure that if I'm spending a lot of time cooking, that, and it's more of a significant meal where I'm having to spend 30 minutes or more on it, I make sure it's a recipe that I can cook in bulk, so that when it is done cooking, not only do I have a meal for that night, but then I can also pack all of those things up into Ziploc bags. I can write the date and what's in it. I can freeze it flat, so that in my freezer I actually have bricks of pre-prepared meals. So on other meal planning weeks, one of my meal plans might be the chili that I froze in the freezer, or the shredded chicken that I can use to make chicken tacos, and just doing little things in advance. If you're going to go through the effort, do it in bulk, so that you're only going through the effort once, but you're having several meals out of the work. I definitely recommend not feeling afraid or guilty about using shortcuts in your cooking. I believe everybody here is doing the very best that they're doing under their circumstances, with the tools that they have at hand and with their ability. And you're doing your best even if you've told yourself that you can do better. So try not to be too hard on yourself when you are making shortcuts, or if there's nights that you do feel like you just need to order out or grab something from the freezer section of the fridge. It's that thought of just do the best you can as often as you can. So that being said, I feel there's a lot of really great shortcuts in helping you cook from scratch in a little bit easier process. We did kind of briefly talk about using bagged lettuce. I feel like that is a really great way to incorporate salads and vegetables each night without necessarily having to prepare a vegetable. And there's a lot of really great salad blends now that my kids really enjoy. And truth be told, as long as there's bacon on my salad, my kids will pretty much eat any salad. So another great shortcut is there's a lot of pre-cut vegetables now. So you can get actually like the vegetables that you were just cooking, or you can get really great like mirepoix bases that you can use for stews and soups. And I do believe I just heard from a nutrition class that I took with my daughter that you can actually get a frozen mirepoix mix now that comes in the freezer section at Walmart for like $1. So there's definitely really affordable and simple ways for you to have shortcuts to cooking better. Something else that we do that kind of breaks up our evenings a little bit is, instead of always hustling home and jumping right on that afternoon snack, sometimes we will just do an early dinner. So we end up eating at like 4 or 4:30, which is super, super early. But my kids are hungry anyway because they're ready for a snack after school. And then what's really great is we end up having a really elaborate dessert. And by elaborate, I mean we're all spending time preparing it together because we're not in as much of a rush and we're not hangry. So a lot of times that involves cutting fresh berries, tossing them with the real cinnamon that does a really great job of balancing your blood sugar, and then maybe using real whipped cream with lemon zest or a little bit of almond or vanilla in it. So the cool thing about this is you're preparing your big meal earlier in the evening before everybody gets tired. Everybody is eating a really healthy, balanced meal instead of having maybe some more empty calorie snacks. And then you're also getting several extra servings of fruit as in the form of dessert. So again, with all of this meal planning and planning snacks, don't forget yourself in all of this. It's so easy to plan meals for your kids and to make sure that your kids are eating, and then just decide that you're going to just grab the cookie or whatever is on hand there and eat, not really considering that you too need to be really nourished in your food choices. Talking about shortcuts again, something that I let go of control of this year was packing my kids' lunches. It was really a big deal for me because I was the mom that was making their little hard-boiled eggs and putting them in molds to look like teddy bears, and making homemade grass-fed gelatin snacks and cutting them into hearts, and putting everything into the little bento boxes so it looked really cute. And I took a lot of pride in making lunches for my kids. But I was finding we were having a lot of struggles where they were coming home after their school day, half of their lunch was eaten. It was usually only the poor choices that I had included in their lunch that were eaten, and all the healthy items were left over. And it was really causing a lot of stress and frustrating me. So this year I decided to let go of that control, and I ordered them lunches from school, which we are in a really great school where they actually have a bona fide chef come in and prepare meals that include vegetables with every serving, and they have salad bar options. So I still feel like my children are eating pretty well by having the school bought lunches, but it has eliminated a massive amount of stress for me. The other cool thing is, now that I'm not packing an entire lunch, at 5 and 8 years old, my kids are packing their own snacks. So the cool thing about this too is that they are partaking in their food choices. We're having really organic conversations about fruits and vegetables and proteins and carbs, and finding the balance to keep their system going throughout the day. Our evenings get eaten up really quickly with homework, bathing, dinner. And so this idea of releasing the control, letting the kids pack their own snacks, letting the kids do really age-appropriate activities for themselves, putting their dishes in the dishwasher. If I'm doing the laundry, making sure that they are helping fold and they are putting their laundry in their drawers. All of these things help you take a little bit more time for yourself that you may not otherwise be able to do. Just going through my notes here, sorry. So when it came to packing their snacks, I knew that if I had it organized in a way that they could tackle the snack making, that this was an age-appropriate activity that they could do themselves. So I ended up getting bins from the dollar store, and I would put squeeze pouches of applesauce in one bin. I would put Larabars in another bin. In the refrigerator, they knew where to find their string cheese and Baby Bells and little Bries and mandarins and apples. And then we would have conversations about a balanced snack is a protein, a fruit, and a carb. And sometimes those carbs were kind of a tricky carb because they were actually chips made from nuts. So they were actually also getting protein. I created a system that is kind of middle ground for healthy ingredients I can get for them, which means low sugar and organic, but then allowing them the choices to pack it themselves and me not having to prep those snack choices for them. It's cool. They take ownership of their snacks, and they actually eat their snacks a lot more now because they're the ones that have chosen what go into their snacks. And then I'm able to have the time now to still do those things I did when I was making their own lunches, which is write a little note to put into their lunches before I slip it into their backpack. There is so much to expand on here about involving your kids with their food prep and their choices, and setting your intentions about what kind of food you're going to put into your body, and conversations about what is nutrition and what is politics. But this kind of intentional activities happen so often in so many of the things that we do at home, and they're learning opportunities. And if you're rested and balanced, then you can take advantage of these kinds of opportunities. I think I mentioned before, I am going to be having a parent and taught monthly workshop where we can talk a lot about these kinds of things and involving our children in more of our family choices. Okay, moving down to some more of our goals from the Facebook group was social connectivity, which, that's a tough one. I still struggle with that even now that my kids are older. So once you have kids, all of the things you thought you knew about life shifts dramatically. I'm sure you all can agree to that. And you have a whole new understanding of what life is about. It also becomes hard, especially when you're a first-time parent and you still have a lot of friends that don't have kids. It can be really hard to relate to your friends that don't have kids, or there might be a feeling that they couldn't possibly understand your new dynamic and the struggles that you're facing. I was really lucky. I took an amazing prenatal yoga class when I was pregnant with my first, and I went through this amazing journey with all of these other women where we went from just being women and just being wives into this journey into motherhood. And it was in that journey that we were brought incredibly close. And not only was it that transition into motherhood, but we would schedule play dates together. And even though our infants were basically just rolling over on their play mats and drooling, it became an opportunity for us to talk about rashes and diapers and the shifts in our relationships with our significant others. And it's all of these same struggles that can make us feel really, really alone when we don't have a community, but when shared with others going through similar circumstances can really make us feel understood and heard and connected. So for new moms, if you haven't yet established a community, you need to find that. That means getting online, taking Mommy and Me classes. It means calling your friends on the phone when your baby is napping. It means staying connected because when you have kids, you have to work so much harder to stay connected with your friends. Even my kids at 5 and 8 years old, I'm still having to form groups and take really intentional action to create friendships and to maintain them. So at my kids' school, I started a single moms group when we meet once a month and we bring a potluck dish and our kids all get to run around and be crazy. And we get to talk about the things that single moms experience that a lot of the other moms at the school just can't. They can try to understand, but at the end of the day, they just don't understand. And it doesn't make those other friendships less valid, but it does help us feel like we are relatable and that we are understood. So the other thing you're probably finding when you have kids is that hanging out with friends is no longer an organic spur of the moment thing. We don't just call each other up and be like, what you doing? Let's hang out. So there's a lot of scheduling, which is going to come up again and again in this workshop, is letting go of control, but then also scheduling the things that need to happen. Having intentional time with your friends, oftentimes it becomes the only way that you are spending time with your friends. So selfishly, it's you're reaching out to your friends and you're keeping that friendship alive, but it's also very nourishing to yourself and still allowing you to relate to people outside of just your relationship with your child. Because it's an intense struggle learning to care for another human being. A lot of people use meetups to find groups of people. You could Google local activities for kids. I know almost every public library has story times that will often have crafts after, and I've actually met some really great parents doing those types of things. Parent and taught classes are great. I did a parent and taught gymnastics with my youngest daughter, and ended up meeting some really great parents that way. So there's lots of things that you can do, but again, you have to take that step. You have to put yourself out there on your path to open up doorways, to make those connections. We did talk about how sometimes it can be hard to connect to our existing friends, especially if they don't have kids. But those friendships are still very much valid and important. And if you are having a hard time connecting with your existing friendships, you definitely need to reach out to them and say, hi, I need you. I need to connect with you. I'm available on this time. My baby naps from this time to this time. Can we catch up? I need to talk. It's so important to outreach. Friends know that they haven't been forgotten, and that means a lot to them. And then they also understand that your time is valuable and your time is limited. And so even though there's this great dynamic shift in how you will connect with them, they appreciate that by you reaching out and saying that you need them, but that it has to be scheduled, that's okay. At the core of everything with your friendships is just good communication and scheduling. So again, that theme, scheduling, planning. And I mentioned before, I was never a scheduler before. I just kind of always ran by the seat of my pants, but it's become so important and it's reduced my stress immensely. Some other activities we talked about was yoga. So I've done yoga off and on since my early 20s. I had a car accident when I was 17 and pretty much had back pain from then on out. But once I started doing yoga, I discovered it almost completely alleviated my pain if I did it regularly. And many schools are incorporating yoga. My youngest daughter did preschool at a public elementary school. And so we would have to walk through the school to get her to her preschool class. And in one of the big common spaces, there would be a big area of first and second graders in a big circle with their teachers. And they would all be doing yoga together, and they would be focused and they would be good at it. And if this completely diverse group of kids who are probably not all coming from families who really support yoga and self-love and self-care. If kids from all types of different families can embrace yoga when they're in their schools, then certainly our children in our families where we are open to self-care and we are open to things like yoga, then certainly our children can do it too. I personally love Yoga by Adriene, and I can definitely share her information in the group as well. She has yoga for pretty much every ailment, and she also has a really laid-back, fun personality. The other cool thing about her videos is she has been doing them for years, so she has a bazillion of them, but she also understands that yoga is an individual sport and that we don't have to be as good as the person next to us on the next mat, that yoga is all about improving ourselves slowly over time. And she definitely drives that message home, which makes me feel like I can keep doing her yoga and not feeling I'm falling behind. So yoga is about self-growth, self-improvement, and consistency in your practice. And you will find that as you begin to take steps and you are improving your practice, your kids are going to notice your improvement as well. I did start doing yoga at home using the online Yoga with Yoga by Adriene instead of going to a studio because, one, I just didn't have the budget to allow me to pay to go to a studio. But I also wanted to model for my kids really healthy activities. They definitely were not interested in doing yoga with me initially. My youngest daughter would do a pose or two with me and then totally lose interest. And then my oldest was just too cool for school. She was not interested at all. So I began having them eat dinner in the living room and watching TV while I would do yoga and while they ate and where they could see me. And 9 out of 10 times they would start watching me instead of the TV as I was doing the yoga. So then the next step is I told them that we were not going to watch TV during dinner, but they would still sit in the living room where I was doing yoga and they could watch me doing the yoga. And then I, of course, invited them that if they wanted to join, they were welcome to do that as well. And I think it was probably not until like the 9th or 10th time that they watched me that they actually decided to join in and to do it and kind of left their half-eaten dinners to join me in yoga and then went back and finished their dinners afterward. So now we go back to our regular dinner routine, but because they have seen me doing the yoga and they understand that this is a part of my self-care journey, that now when I do it when they're doing small play or my oldest is doing homework, that they'll kind of float in and out of my space and then do the yoga with me. I know that there's a really great variety of yoga for kids online. I've not actually looked any up. I'm sure we could all find some together. But because my children have embraced the adult style yoga that I'm doing, and because yoga is activity that you just do what you can with your current abilities, that we haven't had to seek out the children's yoga. And just a reminder that kids have to adjust to new routines, and you adding more self-care into your life is the same. Your children will adjust to you taking that time for yourself. We talked about cardio as well in the group. For me, this is the most difficult activity to do with my children. And what I've done is I've eliminated this idea that cardio has to be done in a 30 to 60 minute segment, because it just doesn't happen for me if I think of it that way. Cardio can happen in smaller clumps of time when I can squeeze it in, when you can squeeze it in, when your kids can squeeze it in. For example, we take our dog for a walk around a pond. And I would say around the pond once is probably about a quarter of a mile. My kids like to run around the pond once for sure. My youngest one, she kind of goes around once with the run. And then the second time, she's not really wanting to run anymore. And honestly, after I've run around that pond once, I pretty much never want to run ever again a day in my life. But then we walk around again. So we've run around the pond for a quarter of a mile. We've walked usually another once or twice around. My oldest is meanwhile probably run twice or 3 times around. And so at this point, we've gotten at least 15 plus minutes of cardio just by incorporating what we have to do anyway, which is to take our dog outside. So then something else that we do is we do dance parties in our living room. So that's another great way to bring cardio into your home with your kids. So we'll go on YouTube or Pandora. My kids really like all the Pop-Tart tunes like Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, which I'm sure they are absolutely lovely ladies. However, it's kind of hard to listen to all that kind of music all the time. But my kids love it, so I do it. I also have a very low-lying, sturdy coffee table in my living room. And they like to get up on the table, which is a rule that's okay in my house. They can get up on the coffee table as long as there's nothing on there that can get broken or ruined. And so it kind of becomes this little stage in our living room, and we turn the music on and we dance. And we crank the music up pretty loud, and we just dance to our heart's content. So if you dance to one song, that's like 3 or 4 minutes. If you dance to 2 or 3 more songs, that's another 15 minutes of cardio. So if you couple that with running with the dog, you're at least 30 minutes of cardio, which they recommend 30 to 60 minutes of cardio a day. So it doesn't have to be putting on your workout pants, getting your music ready to go, finding childcare for your kids, going to the gym, getting in your workout time. This is all about fitting it in the little pockets of time that you have and making it an activity so you're creating an active lifestyle for your kids more so than teaching them that they need to work out. We did do a meditation at the beginning of the workshop. I hope you guys liked that. I also set up a free meditation email that you guys would have all got the link to in the bottom of the emails you've been getting from Abundant Parent for this workshop, but I will post the link in the Facebook group as well. It is a free email that I put together. So through the link, you'll provide your email and sign up for it. By signing up and providing your email, you automatically get sent the meditation resources. So in this email, I incorporate your kids. So there's several different types of meditations based on the kid's age. There is one just for adults that I really love and I listen to every night as I go to sleep. So I'm not really setting aside any special time to do this longer meditation because I do end up falling asleep as I'm listening to it. And then there's a lot of work that my mind is doing subconsciously as I sleep with the meditation. A lot of the other ones that are for the kids are relatively short. I think the longest one is 7 minutes. The one for younger kids is done in a storyteller style, so there's a really engaging voice that the kids really like to listen to. And just the quiet spaces that we give ourselves through meditation, through prayer, whatever your choice of self-reflection is, it's the core of manifesting the life that we want. It's in those quiet moments that we are able to ask ourselves questions and then also answer them for ourselves by really listening to our inner voice. Something that you don't get when you're just constantly on the run and not taking those quiet moments to connect with yourself. Meditation for kids too is a great practice because it's something that you're teaching them at a really young age. And meditation is a tool that they can take with them into adulthood and really help them through just about every struggle they could ever face in their life. So you're really giving them a fantastic gift by teaching them meditation now. In that same email, I've included a meditation that literally takes 1 minute to do. As a parent, I understand that this concept that you're going to fit in this yoga and this cardio and all these healthy eating and all these other things is ridiculous. I get it. You're not going to do it all at once. But that if you just have 1 minute, you're sitting in your car waiting to pick your kid up. Your kid has sat on the floor to play with something and you know that you've probably got 5 minutes to do something, you can do this meditation. So there's a link for that within the email that I send you as well. It's just this emphasis on the importance of quiet space. There's a world of difference in your parenting and this ultimate challenge of caring for yourself so that you can be a more caring, grounded parent. Energy was something that came up in the group. So energy levels and needing to have more energy. So you are going to find through all of the things we've already talked about that you are through making better food choices by including more cardio and yoga, through reducing your stress through meditation, you are actually going to have an increase in your energy level. We can definitely have more talks on the Facebook group about sugar and caffeine and how these things affect your energy level by taxing your adrenals. And so ultimately all of these poorer food choices, they cause you to be in a negative cycle of feeling low in energy. So you give yourself caffeine, and because your energy is low, then you're craving sugar, and it gives you a boost for a short amount of time, but then it kind of knocks you back down again. So all throughout the day, over and over again, your highs and lows, which are caused by the stimulants that you're giving yourself. I know that through cutting caffeine and sugar out of my life, my energy level is so much better. And I've done it a couple times in my life. So I know that if I can do it, you can also do it. The more level and grounded I am without the sugar, it gives me a healthy place to wrap up my kids' day. I'm no longer exhausted at the end of the night when it's time to put them to bed. And when I'm in a more positive, healthy place at the end of the night, it helps them to manifest more positivity as they sleep and to have a better morning the next morning. And so again, it's this idea that through better scheduling, releasing control, being kinder to yourself, it's affecting your children directly. Hurdles. So we've talked about all of these goals, but we also know that there's a lot of things that will either set us back or stop us from doing them, because otherwise we would have done them all already. So we know that the goals that we want to achieve, and so we have to ask ourselves, why haven't we done them yet? I mean, at this point, why have we not yet tried to do them? So there are a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors. Some are really glaring and obvious, and others are really subconscious. Some are even messages that we received from our parents as children, things that have been passed down to us by the judgments that our parents have actually held. So my mom, this isn't really specifically about self-love, but my mom passed down judgments about financial issues and financial success. She had judgments, even though she didn't outright say it, there was enough commentary that I knew that she had judgments about the people who have a lot of money, and judgments that money would not come easy to her. And so I work very, very hard to stop myself when I talk to my kids about not having money to do things, about letting them know that there are really good people, both wealthy and not, and to really point out when wealthy people are doing good things for the world, so that I'm not passing on judgments that I've inherited and passing those judgments further on to my children. The same thing goes for behaviors and judgments about our self-care. So my mom was particularly good about taking care of herself. She was a single mom. I would take my coloring books and sit with her outside of the racquetball court when we'd go to the athletic club. I remember staying with my grandma when she would go on trips to give herself her own time and to reboost. And so from that standpoint, I had a very, very healthy understanding of self-care. But as we talked about, my mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 7, and I learned from an early age that I needed to put my own needs on the back burner, and understanding that my own self-care was not quite as important stuck with me my entire life. And I came to understand that I needed to be self-sufficient and not really luxurious with my self-care. And some of this messaging also came through my understanding of finances, that you don't spend extra money on yourself, that you need to be frugal with your finances. So there was definitely a tie there. All of this translated to me getting married, putting myself last in my marriage, and then having children and putting my children above myself. It's this vicious cycle of knowing that I'm the one that needs to care for all of these other people and still not taking the time to care for myself first so I can be the best person for them. So it took, again, going through that divorce and realizing that I didn't take care of me, there would be nobody there to take care of my children if anything happened to me. And it's probably something that my mom recognized too when she was diagnosed with the breast cancer, is that if she went away, all the healthiest foundations in my life also went away. So remembering that when I look at my self-care, that if I don't take care of myself, then all the healthiest foundations in my children's life also go away. So I had to definitely make some really big changes for myself, especially after decades of habits and judgments. And a lot of that came with erasing the guilt about self-care. So the voices and the messages I say to myself when I've been working hard all week and I have my first day off are not always fantastic. As an entrepreneur, I know that I need to strive every day to put my messages out there. I need to reach the most people to bring income in for my family. I've had to let go of saying that I shouldn't be relaxing, that I shouldn't be doing yoga when I have those posts to make. I shouldn't be meditating when I know there's a bill due tomorrow. I shouldn't be doing dance cardio with my kids when I know my kids don't have snacks tomorrow for school and I should really be going to the grocery store. Should, judgy McJudgerton. So I created a system when it was time for me to spend time on my self-care. All of the to-do lists, the judgments, the messages of guilt that would come up in my mind, I would write them down on paper to clear my mind. I knew that when I spent that 30 minutes on myself, meditating or whatever the self-care practice was, that I would have to be there in that moment with no judgment. That time was just for me, and I deserved that time. In that time, all of the to-do list guilt gets written down on a piece of paper as a list, so that any fear of forgetting the things that I should be doing would just go away. And sometimes in the very beginning, that to-do list ramble in my brain would overtake the good work I was trying to do. So sometimes I would have to start my meditation over once or twice before I released that control and said, right now, the only place I need to be is here in my quiet place, meditating. So you've made the list, you know those things aren't going anywhere, you can focus on your meditation and what you need in that self-care. Also reminding myself that sacrificing my self-care doesn't make all of those other things go away. All of those other things will still be there. Sometimes I'll do the reverse where I have a really big to-do list and I will just check off as much as I can before I do my self-care, just to kind of clear my mind and make sure that I'm not stressed about all the things that I need to do. But I understand that what's left on the list will get done. And so even if I don't complete the list in its entirety and there's another few items on the list, because the world holds me accountable to doing those other things, they will definitely get done. And I can reward myself by taking that time for the self-care. Again, it's scheduling, understanding your time, making sure your self-care takes just as much priority as all of those other things in the outside world that the outside world is holding you accountable for. Bills, doctor's appointments, grocery store runs. But the important piece is holding yourself accountable to the self-care. If you insist on judging yourself, then judge yourself about what you're not doing for yourself, but only if you insist. All right, you guys. So I gave you guys a download on the Facebook group. It was that little printout with the 4 squares on it that you could print out and cut out. I don't know if you cut them out or not, but you can cut them out. So it looks something like this. Did you guys all get those? So on these, there's a little space at the top here to write what your goal was. And I asked you guys to write those out before we have our workshop here. And then the rest of this is really kind of an accountability tracker. You can print as many as you want, but I thought 4 was a healthy place to start without feeling overwhelming. And then underneath where you write down your initial goal, you've got your motivation scale. So on a scale of 1 to 10, basically this motivation scale is what is the likelihood that you are going to complete this if nobody is holding you accountable and if you have no plan to complete it. So all of this being said, I want you to pick the thing that you think you are least likely to achieve. Least likely. So for me, my self-love goal that I am least likely to achieve is probably the cardio factor. Because even though we try to be very active in our lives, I don't do as much cardio as I should do. And I believe that that is the thing that I am least likely to achieve. Now, I want you to take the goal that you are least likely to achieve of all of them that you wrote down and all of your motivation scales, the one that gets the score of the 1. I want that to be the one that you tackle first. And then I want you to go back and think, what is the worst case scenario if I work towards this goal? The worst case scenario is one that you've probably attempted to do it and maybe you haven't found exactly the right activity for you. Worst case scenario. So I want you to go to YouTube. The steps here are research, decide, and schedule. I didn't put a lot of room here because we're not overthinking this. We were just getting it done. So not necessarily right now, but at some point, I just want you to go to Google. I suggest you do it right after the workshop if you have the time before you pick kids up from school maybe. First step, I want you to go to Google and I want you to type in, I'm going to use yoga as my example, but you can do whatever your goal might be. I want you to go to yoga and I want you to type in your zip code. I want you to click on the very first studio on the Google search, and I want you to go to their website. I want you to find their schedule, and I want you to write down on your calendar the very first class that is in line with when you have like an hour-and-a-half window without your kids. Now, this is going to be different for everybody because everybody's time is a little bit different, but I'm just using this as an example. And if you're struggling with your goal, let's bring it up on the Facebook group, and we can definitely help you hash through it. So you're going to go to the very soonest window of time that you have that a class coordinates with that. And you're going to write it down, and then you're just going to go. When it comes time for that class, you are just going to go. You're not going to judge. There's going to be no negotiations, no more research, because the worst case scenario is that you still get to yoga and it sets you on the path towards achieving your first goal. So again, as you're doing all of these, you're researching, you're deciding, and you're scheduling it, then you have to think, what's going to hold me accountable? In 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, but most importantly, what is going to hold you accountable today? So please post on the Facebook group. We will offer accountability. I can put a post up there. You can put a post up there saying what your goal was and what you did to get started, and we can help hold you accountable by asking you if you went to that class. But write down your goals, add them to the group, be vulnerable with your goals, and allow us to help you on this journey. And maybe even in the post on Facebook, tell us why you believe you won't achieve your goals, all the excuses you're telling yourself, the negotiations that you put through your mind, all the things that make you self-doubt, and together we can help you erase that self-doubt. So I do have here accountabilities for 3 months, 6 months, and a year. So, this is about long-term achievement. So another struggle you might face is being really quick out of the blocks to achieve your goals, but then failing to keep the momentum going. And so now that you're a member of this group, I will check back on the group in 3 months and 6 months and 1 year, and we can continue this conversation about how things are going. Maybe we need to start over from square one and say, okay, you've lost your way. We need to start over. You just need to jump back in. You need to take these steps. And that's okay. That happens. And I'll talk about that now. So, there's all these other hurdles when you are a parent. So let's say that you do a really great job and have a lot of fire about achieving your goals. and your goals start to come to fruition, and then your whole family gets knocked down with flu season. There's like unimaginable puking and snot. And maybe in the middle of flu season and a stomach virus, like one kid gets lice and like the other kid gets strep, and you've just decided you just have to burn the whole house down. Needless to say, your self-care is gonna struggle a little bit. So it's times like this you have to do away with the judgment, you have to do away with the control, and you have to say, I've achieved these goals once. I know how good it feels when I achieve them. And it's going to happen again, but right now my family needs to heal. And this is okay. This is okay. This happens. So forgive yourself, accept the lessons that are coming to your family through this illness or whatever might be rocking your progress. Or maybe it's something less traumatic, like family has just come out of town. Though some people might argue that's traumatic. So maybe some family has come into town. There's heaps of things that throw me off my self-care. So if all of this happens, you're having a hard time getting back in the saddle, then reach out to us if you need support. Myself, the other parents in the group, we will help you get back through the steps to achieve this. Just remember, the hardest part is getting started. And once you achieve and set your path towards that first hardest goal you think you want to achieve, all the other ones come very easily. Just kind of rewinding back a moment to the family illness stuff. When our family is struggling or suffering, our goals shift. When our families are going through hardships, and sometimes those hardships are just like a really tough flu season, we have to shift those self-love goals. So we may not be doing the cardio family dance-a-thons, but instead you are taking that little bit of extra time to make really great bone broth or elderberry syrup. And then not only giving that to your family, but giving that to yourself too. To do the things to care for your family when they are sick, and then making sure that you aren't losing yourself in that process, that your family is getting the immune boosters and that you are also. Because I know I, for one, am really guilty of caring for the people in my life, and even though I know I should be doing things, not doing them. All right, so we have talked about the vision. We have talked about what some of your goals might be. We've talked about some ways to incorporate them into our lives. So now I want to talk to you about the intentions of making them happen, and in the forms I've given you to set your goals, these guys. So you are setting the intention that you will complete these goals. That's why you're here at this workshop. That's why you filled out these forms. It is your intention. Your intention is that these goals are achievable. You're going to have a clear path to achieving them, and you're going to make it happen. So for every goal that you set yourself, for every goal that you set for yourself, I want you to have a related affirmation. And this can be something that you write on the back here. This can be something that you write on a separate sheet of paper and you put on your Pinterest mirror in your bathroom. So let's see, I think I wrote one here for an example. Okay, so for example, if you want to have more cardio as a family, then maybe your affirmation might be, my family incorporates cardio activity into each and every day in really fun ways, and we are thriving with the new activity. So you can see you are writing the affirmation from the standpoint that it has already happened, and you're giving gratitude towards this activity that's already occurring and benefiting you and your family. So for every one of these goals, I want you to write a related affirmation. Once you've set your intention, you need to plan how you're going to achieve it. So remember, the universe is just waiting for you to take the first step and to meet you on your path and to help you find your way. So don't overthink what your first step is, because whatever you first decide is going to have some changes and shifts along the way. So find out what works well for you and your family with your schedule and your dynamics, and just take that first step. We talked about accountability. So this Facebook group is definitely here for you for that. If you feel more comfortable finding someone who can help you be more accountable personally, then definitely reach out to your friends and your family. You might even find your accountability buddy might actually be your kids. So set your intentions with your children. Let them know what your intentions are. I might tell my kids, my intention for us is to do more cardio, and my intention is to bring yoga in our home, and my intention is to give myself more time to care for myself, and my intention is to eat better. So you might be surprised how much your children want to see you thrive. Your children might be the ones who are making sure that you've had a snack, or that you're eating with them at dinner time, or that you've had breakfast too. They might remind you that you guys didn't have your evening dance-a-thon. And so especially if you are creating these new routines around these healthy activities, your children will start to recognize that these activities are happening with regularity and that they're becoming a new habit. And so when they are absent, your children are going to notice. Don't underestimate the value of having your children help you stay accountable in caring for yourself, because they love you so much. They are so proud of you, and they think you are perfect and amazing, and they want to see you thrive. Accountability might be scheduling classes and having other people accountable that you're going to meet up to do things with. So there's also that power in signing up for the class and then getting out and meeting people and scheduling activities with people. These are all incredibly motivating. Lastly, as accountability, is this camaraderie and social connectivity, which we're also hungry for as parents. And so I'm hosting a parent-taught workshop each month that's going to start next month, where we will bring a lot of these self-care goals into your life, and the power of positivity and manifestation and the universe into your kids' lives, helping them understand how powerful they are in achieving their own goals, and welcoming positivity into their expectations of their own lives. I will, as soon as that's put together, I will include that link in the Facebook group. But it will be a separate Zoom conference each month, where there'll be a little bit of training and workshop style stuff where we'll talk about the struggles we're facing. I'm thinking we might even need to do one about nutrition, because that seems to be really coming up a lot. So within this monthly workshop, you'll be able to address your questions and struggles. You'll receive tools and resources. And then we'll definitely be able to apply all of these new challenges to what we're learning in the workshop. We'll be discussing food, child development, your child's growth and positivity. And then today and over the next week in the Facebook group, let's continue to talk and where I can continue to answer your questions about the workshop. I encourage you to respond to each other's comments. I know many of you individually, and you were all really strong, amazing parents who are giving a lot of thought into raising your children intentionally. And so I do have a lot of faith in the responses that you can offer one another. So that's it. Thank you all so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I did a lot of talking, but I feel like you guys can ask a lot of questions within the Facebook group, and we can be sure to support each other a little bit more on this journey. All right. Thanks so much. Bye.